My parents let me die while celebrating my brother's success. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking, true stories to light. Now, let's get started. I've held on to this story for years, but I think it's finally time to get it off my chest. Maybe Reddit is the right place for that. My name's Derek. I'm 30 years old. I used to own a custom motorcycle repair shop until everything changed. But we'll get to that. Growing up in Bristol, Tennessee was hell, not because of the town, but because of my family. I have a younger brother, Tyler. He's 3 years younger than me, and to my parents, the sun might as well have shined out of his ass. Our house. It wasn't a home. It was the Tyler Shrine. The living room was practically a baseball museum, his trophies displayed like Olympic gold medals, his framed jerseys hanging on the walls like he was Babe freaking Ruth. My parents even had a special glass cabinet built just to showcase all his baseball memorabilia. And my achievements? I was good at auto shop in high school. Won a few awards for engine rebuilds. Guess where those ended up? A drawer somewhere. Maybe the trash. The best reaction I ever got was a half-hearted "that's nice, son," from my dad. Once in a blue moon. When I was 16, I spent an entire summer fixing up an old Kawasaki engine. Worked 2 jobs at a gas station just to afford the parts. When I finally got it running, I was so damn proud. I called my dad out to the garage, thinking just this once he might care. He barely looked at it. Stood there for maybe 20 seconds. Muttered, "That's nice, son." Then, without skipping a beat, he asked, "Did you see Tyler's batting stats in the paper this morning?" I was standing there, covered in grease, hands still shaking from excitement. And he wanted to talk about Tyler. That was my entire childhood. My mom would spend hours cooking Tyler's favorite meals before his games. Gotta make sure my all-star has his energy. But when I had a big bike show coming up, just grab something from the fridge, Derek. My dad left work early for every single one of Tyler's games. But when I won second place at a regional custom bike competition, he was too busy to show up. Eventually, I stopped telling them about my competitions altogether. What was the point? And let's talk about money. Private coaches, top-of-the-line gear, traveling teams. Thousands and thousands of dollars went into Tyler's baseball career. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs just to buy tools and parts for my bikes. Never got a dime from my parents for my passion. The thing is, I didn't even hate Tyler for it. He wasn't a bad guy, just spoiled beyond belief. Completely clueless about how unfair things were. Sometimes, when my parents would shower him with praise while ignoring me, I'd catch this uncomfortable look on his face. But he never spoke up. Why would he? Kid was living the dream. By the time I turned 18, I knew I had to get the hell out before I lost my mind. I saved every penny I could and managed to rent a tiny garage about 8 miles from my parents' house. Far enough that I didn't have to see the daily worship service of St. Tyler, but close enough that they could reach me if they ever bothered to try. I built that motorcycle repair business from nothing. No handouts, no fancy loans, no family connections. Just me. 16-hour days. Sleeping on a filthy old cot in the back of my shop for the first year until I could afford an apartment. It was brutal, but I was damn good at what I did. Word got around. People said I could fix and modify bikes better than the dealerships, and for half the price. That shop became my whole life. And then there was Mia. She moved in next door about 2 years ago, opened a little coffee shop. The first time she walked over with a welcome to the neighborhood coffee, I almost dropped the wrench I was holding. She was gorgeous, smart, funny, way out my league. But for some reason, she liked talking to me. She actually listened when I went on about bikes and engines. I'd get these stupid butterflies in my stomach whenever she stopped by, but I kept it professional. Why would someone like her be interested in someone like me? My family had made it very clear I wasn't worth much. So, I figured she probably thought the same. Still, things were going okay. Business was good. I had my shop, my dog Max, and at least Mia seemed to enjoy our small talk. For the first time, I thought my life was actually heading in the right direction. And then, that day happened. The day that opened my eyes to exactly where I stood with my family. The day everything changed. It was a Tuesday. I remember because nothing about that morning seemed unusual. I was working on a Ducati that some rich guy from Nashville had brought in for custom work. Fancy mods, kind of pain in the ass, but he was paying top dollar, so I wasn't complaining. Max was in his usual spot by the door, snoring away like the lazy old bastard he was. AC/DC was blasting from my ancient speakers. Just another day. I was using my plasma cutter to modify the frame, something I'd done 100 times before. Nothing complicated. Routine work. Until it wasn't. To this day, I still don't know exactly what went wrong. Maybe there was a flaw in the metal. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. 1 second, I was focused on making a clean cut. The next, a horrible sound, metal screeching, sparks flying. And then pain. The plasma cutter kicked back hard. The blade sliced straight through my right leg, just above the knee. I remember watching the metal glow red hot as it tore through my flesh. And the smell. Jesus Christ, the smell, burning flesh. My flesh. I screamed, loud enough that Max shot up, barking like he was ready to attack whatever had hurt me. Then the blood started gushing. Not just bleeding, gushing with every heartbeat. I stumbled backward, lost my balance, and cracked my head against the concrete floor. The pain, I can't even describe it. Like someone had shoved my leg into a furnace and was twisting it. I'd broken bones before, burned myself on exhaust pipes, cut myself on engine parts. None of it compared to this. I was going to die. I knew it. Somebody help me. I screamed. But my shop was isolated. No way in hell anyone was going to hear me over the music. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely reach for my phone. Blood was already pooling under me, spreading across the floor like I'd knocked over a can of paint. I could feel my heart racing, my body going cold and sweaty. I knew what that meant. Shock. I was dying. With bloody fingers smearing my phone screen, I finally managed to call my mom. She answered on the third ring, her voice casual, like I was calling a chat. Derek, honey, we're in the middle of something important. Can you call an ambulance? My brain barely processed what she was saying. Mom, please, I gasped. My voice was cracking. My vision was starting to tunnel. I'm losing too much blood. I need help. I don't think I can. Just hold on, Derek. We'll be there when we can. Then she hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, my bloody fingerprints smeared across the screen. I tried to call her back. No answer. Try my dad. Straight to voicemail. My fingers were too slippery with blood to dial 911 properly. I kept messing up the numbers. Kept dropping the phone. Max was still barking, his nails clicking against the concrete as he ran circles around me, whining, nudging my face. He wouldn't let me die peacefully. Even the afterlife comes with interruptions, I guess. I don't know how much time passed before my phone buzzed in my hand. My vision was blurry. I could barely focus. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, I felt a wave of relief. They told him. He's checking on me. I answered, barely able to breathe. Tyler. His voice was loud, slurred, like he'd been drinking. Liam, what's up, man? Big day today. I blinked. Liam? Did he think I was someone else? Tyler, I choked. Help. Accident, bleeding, bad, need help. There was a pause. For a second, I thought maybe he hadn't heard me. Then he laughed. Oh crap. Sorry. Thought you were someone else calling to congratulate me. We're celebrating my draft pick, man. AA Braves just signed me. $2 million contract. In the background, I heard music, people laughing, glasses clinking. Then my mom's voice. Tyler, honey, come take a picture with the scout. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. My head was spinning. The blood loss was getting worse. Tyler, I whispered, but he was already gone. The line went dead. The last thing I heard before the call cut off was my dad's voice, booming in the background. That's my boy, professional baseball player. Always knew you had it in you. And there I was, bleeding out on the floor of my shop, while my entire family, just 8 miles away, was popping champagne and taking pictures. They couldn't be bothered to drive 10 minutes to save my life. Tyler, please, I whispered, but there was no one left to hear me. My vision started fading fast. The pain felt distant now, like I was floating. I knew what that meant. This was it. I was going to die. Then, suddenly, the shop door slammed open. A voice. Sharp. Panicked. Derek, I brought you some coffee and, oh my God, Mia. Her face appeared above me, her eyes wide, filled with horror. I hated that she had to see me like this. I'd always try to seem tough in front of her. Strong. Derek, stay with me. Don't close your eyes. She was already on her phone, screaming at 911. I need an ambulance now. Severe laceration, arterial bleeding, patient losing consciousness. Then, she ripped off her belt and wrapped it around my thigh. Yanked it tight. The pain jolted me back for a moment. Mia, I mumbled. Don't talk. Just stay awake. Her hands were covered in my blood. But she didn't hesitate. The ambulance is coming. Just stay with me. Derek, please stay with me. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't saved by the people who were supposed to love me. I was saved by the only person who ever truly saw me. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the sound of her voice, repeating my name, over and over, like she was afraid that if she stopped saying it, I might disappear forever. The aftermath. I woke up to the steady beeping of hospital monitors. The smell of antiseptic filled my nose, the same cold, sterile scent hospitals always have. My body felt heavy. My throat was dry. My leg felt like it was on fire. But I was alive. I turned my head and saw her. Mia. She was slumped in a chair next to my bed, fast asleep. Her clothes were still stained with my blood. She had stayed. The realization hit me harder than the pain in my leg. She had stayed. A few hours later, a doctor walked in, clipboard in hand, serious expression on his face. I already knew what was coming. You're lucky to be alive, he said. If your neighbor hadn't found you when she did, you would have bled out in another 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's how close I came to dying. He cleared his throat, hesitated. I could tell he was about to drop bad news. The damage to your leg was extensive, he said carefully. The plasma cutter severed your femoral artery and caused significant nerve and muscle damage. We managed to save the leg, but there was a pause. That pause. That awful, drawn-out silence before someone tells you that your life will never be the same again. You'll need multiple surgeries, and there's a high probability you won't regain full function. Standing for long periods, working like you used to, it may not be possible anymore. I already knew what he was trying to say, which means I can't work on bikes anymore. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. The doctor just nodded. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My entire life, everything I had built for myself, was gone. I was a mechanic who couldn't work on bikes. A business owner who couldn't even stand long enough to run his shop. What the hell was I supposed to do now? Mia woke up a little while later. The first thing she did was reach for my hand. I was so scared, she whispered. There was so much blood. You were so pale. I thought I was going to lose you. I forced a smile. Well, thanks for saving my life. She squeezed my hand. Have your parents been here? I hesitated. I didn't want to tell her. Didn't want to say the words out loud. But I didn't have to. The silence said it for me. Mia frowned. I tried calling the number in your emergency contacts, but no one answered. Right on cue, my phone rang. I saw the caller ID. My dad. For a split second, I let myself hope. Maybe they had come to check on me. Maybe they felt guilty for ignoring my calls. Maybe, just maybe, I actually gave a damn. I answered. Dad, no concern. No panic. No, how are you? Are you okay? Just business. Derek, your mother and I need to borrow $25,000 for Tyler's equipment and relocation expenses. His new team requires it. I felt like I had been slapped. I almost died. I had barely survived. And all they cared about was money. I'm in the hospital, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. I almost died yesterday. Where were you when I called you, begging for help? There was an awkward pause. Then my dad sighed. Don't be so dramatic, Derek. It was just a cut. Just a cut. I lost so much blood I almost died. The doctor told me I had 5 minutes left before it was too late. And my dad had the nerve to say it was just a cut. I snapped. I nearly bled to death. I shouted. And you were too busy celebrating Tyler's baseball contract to even care. More silence. Then, look, my dad said, exasperated. We're sorry you got hurt, but Tyler's signing is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is important. And my life isn't. I hated how pathetic I sounded. How desperate I was for them to just care for once in their lives. But the silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. They didn't. We need that money by next week, my dad finally said. I hung up. Didn't say another word. Just opened my banking app and stared at it. 4 or 5 years. I had been sending my parents $1,000 a month, helping them out with expenses. I always thought I was doing the right thing. I figured they were struggling with a mortgage. Now, I knew where that money had really been going. Straight to Tyler. With a few taps, I canceled the automatic transfers. Done. 5 years of my hard-earned money flushed down the drain. And they couldn't even be bothered to save my life. Mia watched me. She had been quiet this whole time, but now she finally spoke. "Derek," she said softly. I couldn't help overhearing. "Did your parents really not come when you called them?" I told her everything. About growing up as the forgotten son. About how they ignored my call when I was dying. About the years I spent sending them money, only to realize they had been funneling every cent into Tyler's baseball career. By the time I finished, Mia looked like she was about to throw something. "That's not family," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "That's not how parents are supposed to act. That's just so." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to, because we both knew the truth. They never loved me, not the way they loved Tyler, and they never would. Mia stayed with me through my first week in the hospital. Every day, bringing me decent food because hospital food is trash. Helping me figure out the stupid TV remote. Talking to me about anything to keep my mind off things. No one had ever done that for me before. Then a text came in. "Tyler, hey bro, heard you got hurt. That sucks. Also, did you tell mom and dad you won't help with my expenses?" Not cool, man. Family helps family. I didn't even bother responding. The next day, my mom left a voicemail. "Derek, honey, I know you're upset, but this is Tyler's big break. We really need that money. Call us back." Mia was sitting next to me when I played it. She took my phone, deleted the voicemail, and looked me dead in the eyes. "You don't need them." Then she took my hand. "You know what?" she said. "I'm going to be your family now. Me and Max." Something about the way she said it made my chest feel tight. Not in a bad way. In a way I wasn't used to. In a way that made me feel like, for the first time in my life, I actually mattered. Losing everything and finding something better. Recovery wasn't just painful. It was humiliating. I went from a guy who could strip and rebuild an entire motorcycle engine with his bare hands to someone who needed help just getting to the damn bathroom. 3 surgeries in 2 months. The first one was to repair more of the damage to my leg. The second, to deal with a nasty infection that nearly took me back to the brink. The third, an attempt to fix some of the nerve damage. Each time they wheeled me into the operating room, I wondered, would this be the one that fixed me? Each time I woke up, I saw the same look on the doctors' faces. The answer was always no. My leg was never going to fully recover. I'd always have pain, always walk with a limp, always have to limit how long I stood. It didn't matter how hard I worked in physical therapy, I was never going back to being the guy I was before. And that meant my shop, my business, my entire identity, gone. And the bills? Jesus Christ, the bills. Even with insurance, I was looking at over $80,000 in medical debt. My shop was sitting empty, but I still had to pay rent on it. My savings were draining fast. I was screwed. The only thing keeping me from losing my mind completely? Mia. She was there every step of the way, driving me to appointments, helping me with my exercises, staying late into the night just to keep me company. She could see what I refused to say out loud, that I was breaking, that I felt useless, that I had no idea what the hell I was supposed to do now. One night, after a grueling physical therapy session, she was helping me back into my apartment. My leg was in a brace. I was still on crutches. I was exhausted, and I finally just said it. "What am I supposed to do now, Mia? I can't go back to what I was doing before. I'm useless." She stopped walking, turned to me. "You're not useless," she said, her voice firm. "You're just different now." I scoffed. "Oh yeah? And what the hell am I supposed to do? I can't stand long enough to work on bikes anymore." She tilted her head. "So don't work on them. Teach other people how to." I blinked. Who the hell would want to learn from me? She crossed her arms, giving me that smug, "I'm right, and you know it" look. "Are you kidding? That kid Jamie is always hanging around your shop, asking questions. Start with him." Jamie, a 19-year-old who had been lurking around my shop for months before the accident, asking about bikes, engines, repairs. Annoying as hell, but earnest. I thought about it for a second. Then, the next day, I called him. "Hey, you want to learn how to rebuild a carburetor?" He showed up at my apartment an hour later, looking like I had just offered him $1 million. I taught him from my kitchen table, used diagrams and small engine parts one could work on while sitting down. It wasn't much, but Jamie ate it up. I charged him $20 per session. Not a lot, but something. Then, Jamie told his friends. Soon, I had 3 students. Then 5. I moved the lessons to my garage, where I could at least have my tools around. It still wasn't much money, but it was enough. Enough to make the minimum payments on my medical bills. Enough to keep the lights on. Mia watched all of this unfold with a knowing smirk. "You're a good teacher," she said one night. "You ever think about making it official? Like a real trade school kind of thing?" I laughed. Me? A teacher? Yeah, right. But the idea stuck. Cutting off the people who never cared. My leg wasn't getting much better, but I was learning to work around it. 4 months after the accident, I finally made it back to my shop. Not to work, that was never happening again, but to try this teaching thing for real. I set up a small classroom area with some folding chairs and a whiteboard. My shop, once just mine, became a place for students to learn hands-on motorcycle repair. It wasn't making me rich, but between that and Mia's help, I was staying afloat. Then, one afternoon, while I was sitting at my desk going over diagrams for the next day's lesson, I heard the shop door open. Mia was at the counter. Her voice went tight. "Derek, your parents are here." My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen them since before the accident. They walked in, looking exactly the same. Like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't left me to die. My dad got straight to the point. "We need to talk to you about something important." I just stared at him. I didn't offer them a seat. Didn't say a damn word. My mom sighed, shifting her expensive-looking purse. "Tyler's having some problems with his team." Here it was. "The contract had some fine print we didn't anticipate," she continued, her voice sickly sweet. "And he needs to buy out part of his agreement. It's a legal thing." My dad nodded gravely. "It's going to cost around $450,000 to fix the situation." I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat. It wasn't funny, but it was so pathetic I couldn't help it. "You want me to sell my business to bail Tyler out of a contract problem?" My mom gestured around the shop. "Derek, this place is just sitting here while you recover. If you sell it now, we can use the money to help Tyler, and there would be enough left over for you to start something new once you're better." They said it so casually, like my business, my life's work, was just some disposable hobby. I stared at them. "Let me get this straight," I said, voice eerily calm. "You want me to sell the business that I built from nothing, the business that I can still run, even with my injury, so Tyler can get out a contract that he signed without reading?" My dad frowned. "Don't be selfish, Derek. This is your brother's future we're talking about." Before I could even open my mouth, Mia stepped forward. Her voice was sharp. "Selfish? Are you serious right now?" My parents looked at her like they had just noticed she existed. "Derek almost died," she snapped. "He called you, begging for help, bleeding out on the floor, and you ignored him. You were too busy celebrating Tyler to even care. And now, after everything, you have the audacity to ask him to give up everything he has left." The room went dead silent. My mom's face twisted. "Who are you? This is a family matter. You should stay out of it." I stood up. Pain shot through my leg, but I didn't care. "Mia is family," I said coldly. "More than either of you ever were." I pointed to the door. "Get out, and don't ever come back." My dad's face turned red. "You ungrateful little—" "Get out." They left. Mia turned to me, her face full of concern. "You okay?" I exhaled, and for the first time in my life, I actually was. A new beginning. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Not because I regretted what I had done, not because I felt guilty, but because I was still in shock that they had the nerve to ask me to give up everything I had left for Tyler. After everything, after leaving me to die, after ignoring me for months, they still thought I owed them something. The next morning, I made a decision. I went to the bank and removed my parents as my emergency contacts. Then, I called a friend of mine who was a lawyer. Not my lawyer because I'd never needed one before, but that changed real quick. I had him draft up a will, leaving everything to Mia. And just to be sure, I called the hospital and made it very clear, if anything ever happened to me again, my parents were not to be given any information. I was done. Every single Tie. Cut. A week later, Mia and I were cleaning up the shop after class when she suddenly said something that would change everything. I think we should make this official. I raised an eyebrow. Make what official? She gestured around. This? The school. Let's actually register it as a trade school. Get some certifications. Do it right. I stared at her like she had lost her mind. Mia, that would cost a fortune. The paperwork, the licenses, the equipment upgrades. She grinned. My coffee shop is doing great. How about savings? We could be partners. Business partners? I asked, giving her a skeptical look. She stepped closer. Kissed my cheek. That too. 2 weeks later, we submitted the paperwork to create Summer's Motorcycle Technical Institute. Fancy name, right? Really, it was just me teaching kids in my old shop. But Mia insisted we make it sound professional. The fall of the golden boy. You know what's funny? My entire life, I spent years trying to get my parents to notice me, to be proud of me. And now that I was finally building something real, something that actually mattered, I didn't give a damn if they knew. Their opinion didn't matter anymore. That night, as Mia and I were celebrating with takeout, my phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They might lose the house because of my contract thing. Can you help? I stared at the screen for a long time. And for a brief second, I considered it. Not because I wanted to, but because that's what I had always done. I had always been the one to clean up their messes. I had always been the one to give and give and give, while they never gave me anything in return. And I realized I didn't owe them shit. So I typed back, "You're my brother. But none of you acted like family when I was bleeding out on the floor. I got a real family now. Good luck with your baseball career." Then I blocked his number. Mia, who had been watching from the couch, wrapped her arms around me. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Yeah, actually, I think I am." Karma comes full circle. A few months later, I ran into an old high school friend. He had news. My parents had lost the house. Turns out, when they blew through all their savings to fix Tyler's contract situation, they fell behind on their mortgage payments. They tried to keep up, but without my monthly contributions padding their expenses, it all came crashing down. Now, they were living in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. My dad had to come out of retirement and take a job at the local hardware store. My mom started working part-time at a department store. Karma's a bitch. And Tyler? Oh, Tyler. His baseball career crashed and burned spectacularly. After everything my parents sacrificed for him, after all the money they spent fixing his contract mess, he showed up to training out of shape with a major attitude problem. The team gave him multiple warnings. Then they dropped him, just like that. After one season, his professional baseball career was over. Last I heard, he was working as an assistant coach at some small-town high school, still talking about his almost pro career. The golden child finally had to face reality. He wasn't special, just spoiled. And sometimes when I think about it, I wonder, does he know? Does he realize how much my parents sacrificed for him? How much they worshipped him? Does he ever stop to think about what they did to me? Does he even care? Probably not. And honestly, I don't care either. The life I was meant to have. It's been 3 years since all of this went down. Mia and I got married last spring. A small ceremony. Just friends and her family. The people who actually love me. Our motorcycle school? It's officially certified now. We've got a waiting list 2 months long. We're even thinking about expanding to a second location. My leg still gives me trouble. I'll always walk with a limp. Some nights, I wake up in a cold sweat, the phantom pain shooting through my leg. Memories of that day still fresh. But Mia is always there, holding me, keeping me grounded. My old family left me to die. My new one gives me a reason to live. And that's more than enough for me. So tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have cut them off like I did? Would you have forgiven them? I'm curious what other people think. Sometimes, I wonder if I made the right call. But then, I look at what I've built from the ashes of that day, and I think, maybe just maybe, it was the only call I could have made. Edit Max update. For those asking, yes, Max is still doing great. Getting old, getting lazy, but still the best damn shop dog around. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you next one.